Hello, hello, hello. We are continuing with part 2 of New Jeans Honey worshipped by creepy bunny uncles. Uh, we are off to a great start. I think so. So, just as always, the link to the original video is going to be in the description. And yeah, let's go.
The reason why they failed is that the laws that the National Assembly members are supposed to fix worked against them in this situation. Hanni is not a Hive employee, but the National Assembly people were trying to get the CEO to try to say something that would equate Hanni as a Hive employee. Didn't work. She's not even an employee of a door. She's literally just a freelancer. And so the laws really only protect employees in Korea. And so there is a discussion generally still kind of forming to try to increase worker protections against people who are not permanent employees, people who are like freelancers. And that is something the National Assembly has to take care of. That is a failing of the
Understandable.
National Assembly and lawmakers when it comes to protecting people like Hanni. They're like, oh, well, Hive should do a better job protecting. But really, it's the law and the National Assembly members who have failed.
Mm-hmm.
Second, they also tried to link the death of an employee allegedly from overwork to Hive. And so, like, to try to put them in perception wise on the same level as the other people who are testifying where their companies actually literally killed people on the job. They were
Oh, wow.
trying to make it look like this employee died from overwork, but didn't happen.
And this is
The
going to be
death
the
didn't
fate
happen at
of the New
work.
Jean
There
members. Like,
was a personal illness. There was no autopsy. The parents decided all of that. And the auntie at the National Assembly had the audacity to say, like, well, yeah, that's how cover ups happen. Third, then they try to make a passion play, like basically being paid, not being paid for things that you do. In entertainment companies, it happens a lot. Like you're asked to work, like, overtime or do things like that, essentially where you have to work more than what your job description was. But it sounded like Auntie just made a little monologue. She gave up that fight. She couldn't. She was just like outplayed by the CEO. Now let's talk about the bunny uncles and
yep,
how creepy they were, how sad and pathetic
let's
it
talk
is
about them.
actually. I've seen this a lot in Korea. And the reason why I think it's not really well parsed out is that not all men are like this. Most men, I believe, are not like this. And so to most people in the general Korean public, it'd be like, well, like those those people are just weird, but they're just a lot of the weird people enough to form a bunny coalition of bunny uncles. And usually it's these men who are manipulated so easily by the Jezebel. And usually it is the promise of a cookie.
I
Let's just
just
be
wanted to
honest.
say that.
But usually the promises, I believe, are never really fulfilled. Sprinkles at the most, maybe a chocolate chip or two,
Because it is
but
not
never
for
the full
free.
cookie unless it's for the big dogs who deliver big. And all of these, you can tell, like all of these you can tell like a lot of these guys they haven't actually gotten the cookie and they think that they're going to be the one to get the cookie, but usually you never get the cookie. You don't. And so it's really pathetic to see in action. But as we can see from this situation, even all the way up to the National Assembly level, there are guys misusing taxpayer dollars, wasting our time for a cookie coin transaction that's off the books. Could you also call these men kejoshis, the way that Mini Jin loves to call
That means dogs. The word's first part, right? It's referring to dogs.
complain about kejoshis? I think it's because she surrounds herself with kejoshis. That's why she's so frustrated and acting out against kejoshis. Most people don't have that much of a rage against kejoshis unless you always surrounded yourself with kejoshis. Kejoshis is a word combination between dog and Mr. So it's like some, that dog, kind of. Mr. Dog. So I think some of the other corporate entities were very happy that New Jeans Honey was able to monopolize the headlines to depress some of their stories because there's a lot of tragedy that happened in a lot of these companies that were being investigated. Yes,
Unfortunately,
that
yes.
picture of Honey taking a selfie with the CEO of a subdivision of Hanwha Marine. 5 men died this year from workplace safety violations. And the latest
So that was the picture. I've heard about it. Like basically, the picture was out, and everyone was like, "This is it, game over." Like Eugene's can come back from this. Like no, I, I guess that was the picture.
man to die was a week ago. And here he is sitting in the hearing room, smiling and laughing like kids goofing off while the teacher is giving the lesson. And so they had to apologize for that. But in the sense, it kind of decreased the heat on the actual workplace violation or why they were there. Not even in the hearing, though a lot of the Korean public said that like this was a travesty where the Aricel, a battery manufacturer, should have been also present and grilled in the National Assembly hearing. That was over the summer, maybe a month or 2 months ago. There was a major accident that killed about 23 people at a battery factory. And yes, who is the main customer of that battery supplier? Samsung. So it helps Samsung. So you can kind of tell, like, there's more than one way to make that grave boat work. And there is a valid argument to say that Honey had actually no place to be in this hearing, even if her claims were much higher than just
I mean, yeah, she's outstanding in a negative way in that assembly hearing because she's there with no base of any accusations that she has. Like there's no evidence. Like everyone is denying the fact that anything reasonably negative happened in Hype with Honey. Like period, point blank. That the case is over. Like honestly, this is just like she do it because she can. Like this is the mindset, I guess.
a comment. That wouldn't even register at a preschool. But even if her claims were higher, it wouldn't be relevant for her to show up at the National Assembly hearing until the laws were changed to include artists like her. So, under the law, she's an artist. So, basically, she's essentially like a freelancer. And you might think, oh, well, aren't there protections for freelancers? I know this intimately well. No, there are not. And so all the labor laws that have been worked for and people have sacrificed for to create
Plus, she is not even Korean. She's a freelancer who is not nationally Korean, if I am correct. She is Vietnamese. So there's another um, polarizing thing in the eyes of the nation, in my opinion. If we are overlooking the fact that we're talking about a young girl who is pretty much wrapped every old creepy bunny uncle around her finger in that room. But yeah.
Create better labor conditions only apply if you are hired as like a permanent employee, which they call regular employee. If not, you're literally like doing the circus trapeze without any safety net. And none of the laws apply to you. That's the problem. So, really, this was a place where if the laws were supposed to protect you, you're supposed to give a testimony. She has no reason to be there. If it were really about reforming the freelancer system to have more labor law protection, it would have looked completely different. She would have even have known what that was. She had no idea when one of the law
She can barely even understand Korean. So I would have been surprised if she knew anything about Korean law system.
lawmakers was trying to steer her in that direction. So under the normal system, she shouldn't have even been there. Nobody would have even taken her seriously. Under the Uncle Bunny system, however, we now get a clearer sense of the real picture, and it looked like it turned into a cookie coin convention. So, what was Honey's testimony? She repeated and didn't offer anything more substantial to what she's already said. She said that she greeted Eyelet in the hallway as Eyelet went into the makeup studio. So they did do a proper greeting. 8 seconds on tape. There's evidence of very politeness. Then she said, Honey said, 5 to 10 minutes later, as Eyelet left the makeup room, they didn't say goodbye. And not only that, the manager told Eyelet to pretend that they didn't see Honey and to just ignore her. This is odd. Even if that were the case, how many times you gotta greet each other? Okay, it'd be different, yes, if it was a hello and goodbye of people who are maybe guests to Hive and you want to make sure. But y'all are sort of working together. But not only that, you're not really working together. You guys are separate teams. If there was a different delegation, are you going to be like always like hello, hello, hello? Like y'all seen each other's faces, you know you hate each other's faces. Even if you didn't hate each other's faces, are you going to say hello, goodbye to like let's say your brother or sister is in the other room? Are you always going to say hello, goodbye like while you're living in the same house? It's a little odd.
Yeah.
But Honey said that, oh, this is not the only time this kind of thing has happened. We have to suffer from being ostracized. I don't want this to happen to anybody else, so I came out here today. And now we can see this disgusting interaction between the uncles really trying to prop up and show their support for Honey and really eviscerate the CEO. And it was very odd that they would be so egregious as to not only put a sticker on their laptop saying that they were Team Bunnies, but even in the prologue of them speaking and asking her.
Exactly what I said in the part one of the reaction of this video. I clicked those bunnies instantly, like my eyes were drawn to them. I was like, this is a done deal if you think about it. I mean, the assemblyman is gone into it as a winning situation for them, but or what they wanted, the cookie, but they are not gonna get it. So I mean, they hoped, but it didn't work out as they thought it's gonna be. As I said in previous videos, it only takes one woman. It only takes one.
Her question saying that they're on her side. Where is the impartiality?
What is this
This
picture?
was a setup. Her uncle said, the CEO said there was no evidence, so just suck it up. Yes, she said that there was no evidence, so there's nothing we can do. Were you satisfied with their response? They said there was CCTV with only the hello greeting, so when I went to go check the CCTV, the exit part was erased. There was no CCTV, and the security team slipped up and said that the footage was deleted. I recorded the conversation because I'm not good at Korean, so I have evidence of them lying. If it were a misunderstanding, I would like to confront them directly. And it wasn't just this incident. We've been mistreated from the debut. I learned from Korean culture that you have to respect your elders, but it doesn't seem people return this respect. So you know what? She didn't really understand Korean culture.
Yeah, I was about to say that if you are a Rocky, you're not going to receive any respect. Um, and you should even be happy if they are looking at you in a not disgusting way. I mean, honestly, at this day and age, it's getting better for Rockies, but back in 2010, 2011, from there to now, it's significantly better, the situation in TV stations and radio stations for new groups and new artists. But yeah, Honey doesn't really did her homework really well around the Korean entertainment system. Like she probably learned these things from Min Hee-jin, and that woman has a different kind of mindset about everything, a little bit different when it's actually is in reality. So
Sure, she has stuff to learn. What she's talking about, a person in her position, yes, has to show 100% respect. But especially if it's to the elders or other people, they don't have to return the respect that you give them on a 1-to-1 ratio. If you give 100%, they don't have to give 100% back. That's the whole nature of this hierarchical structure. She doesn't understand Korean culture, she just doesn't understand basic culture either. The uncles even allowed crosstalk where there was some evilness going on. There was the smirk shown across the world where Hanni said
what?
like, "Oh, I don't think you did enough. You could have done better. I don't think you did your best." This is when CEO Kim said that we're trying our
What?
best. She was being very contrite. She was, being very fawning in the way that she's surviving in this jungle of National Assembly uncles and that one auntie.
No way.
And
Ain't no way.
it gave the platform for Honey to be bullying and crying and pretending she was the victim, but not a lot of people bought it. The only ones
What a
buying it,
surprise.
they already sent in their checks, the bunny uncles. And so one of the bunny uncles, who I thought at first was just more neutral, but geez, he was so biased, but he was trying to lead it to a place in the discussion that really focused on the labor abuses. And he asked her, like, hey, were you working at Hybe or Adore thinking that you were under the direction of someone else, like taking orders from someone else?
I mean, that's not the role of a boss, like someone higher than you in rank and someone who's leading you in your workplace, in your job, like someone who has more authority than you. I don't get it. On the other hand, she was groomed by Min Hee-jin, who was supposed to be in her eyes and all the members' eyes as a boss figure, not a motherly figure. So, I mean, she can dance out of this situation if she really wants to, but I don't think she's gonna be able to do it because she lacks of the vocabulary that is needed uh, to be able to navigate through this hearing.
And I've learned from personal experience in terms of the labor law, that is the most critical first hurdle that you have to leap over to be considered an employee. So you can be hired as an employee, and when you're hired as a permanent employee, it's understood that you must take orders. When you're a freelancer, it's much more of a gray zone, and actually, by the law, you're not beholden to take orders from anybody. You just fulfill your contract of delivering something on time. Where
Okay, but this is not just gray. It's really really tricky. It sounds like why you have a boss who gives you a job and they're going to decide whether you sign with the company, for example, for another 7 years contract, like, and even if you're a freelancer, like, I mean, for other groups as well, this is the case as well. Like, I don't know. It sounds weird. Sounds like a really weird law.
there is gray zones is people who should be hired as employees and get the benefits, basically extra cost to the company, are a lot of the times hired as freelancers, so the company saves money and accountability, but still orders and gives directions, and you still have a boss as if you were an employee. So the uncle, congressman, assemblyman, was trying to get Hanni to say, oh yes, I worked as if I was taking orders from somebody. She didn't understand the question. And then
What did I say? She doesn't have the vocabulary, and probably if it was her native language and native situation, she would have also not know what to respond and not understand the question because she is not familiar with the system of the law, and particularly this entertainment part of the law, which is, and the labor workers and stuff like that in her country as well, because she's too young. She had no one who could teach her this type of stuff. The only grown-ups around her is really not useful to her, and they are not helping her case in any type of way. So
he repeated it and she said, oh, I understand about 60%, but it looked like she understood 20 because she didn't answer the question. And the uncle is pissed that she's not answering the question. It is not going the way that they sort of pre planned. You can tell that they sort of pre planned
yeah, he is not going to get that cookie that was promised to him, that's for sure.
this. Not really well, though, because they were probably more focused on her cookie instead of their notebook. And so it didn't really go well. Then the uncle says, why do you think the company hates you? She said, oh, I took a different route to becoming an idol than normal. It went well, so I think that's why people wanted to take me down. Do you think the bullying was effective?
What was the different course of action or different path that her particularly took in order to become an idol? Maybe I am missing this particular thing in the history of New Jeans, but I don't think that was, I mean, he was recruited, right? Like, it's easy, like every other idol. It was not a historical, I don't know, casting. Please help me out in the comments because I honestly don't know.
affected by the fight between Mini Jin and Pang Shi-hyuk and Hybe. So now they're trying to couch it in the sense that there is knock-on effects from a shareholder battle between Mini Jin and Hybe, and it's going trickling
Okay.
down to the rest of the people. Hanni says, yes, of course, we can't say there isn't a connection, and I had to speak up. Now we hear from CEO K, who is serving top level cookie. She starts off by saying, oh yes, honorable assemblyman or person that I respect. Oh, she's playing.
네, 존경하는 위원님. 최초 6월 13일에 부모님으로부터 제가 어도의 사내 이사 중 일원이었을
And she's saying that she heard of this situation on June 13th. So she's being very factual and exact, detail oriented. She said she reviewed the CCTV to take care of the artist, and she repeated that this is a manager not at a door, but from a different company. So she's already putting the lines in the sand, saying like you can't do anything legally with this situation.
Yeah.
Because again, how does somebody over at a door have jurisdiction over what happens over at Source Music? So then the CEO was saying, you know, the CCTV had an expiration date, but I tried my best. Unfortunately,
Source? Wait a minute. Eyelid is under B-lift. If they are talking about the eyelid situation and they are talking about that, let's see. B-lift lab. Yeah. Again, if it's about the eyelid situation, then it's between B-lift and Adore.
Unfortunately, there are conflicting accounts internally. Now, this is the move that is chess master, but looks like she's.
If it's Source, then it's less Seraphim. But it's about eyelid doesn't bowing correctly.
Searching for fabrics at Joanne. She said that I believe everything Hanni is saying, and I'm trying to find evidence to support her position, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to find anything yet. And she even did it with some sort of breathy, like remorse.
Very mindfulness.
Uncle is shuffling papers like crazy because she changed the game board and he has to like try to adjust and try to find something else. And then he's like, well, if the manager wasn't from Adore, which label are they from? And then the CEO said they are from a different label with a different CEO. And then the uncle said, you'd agree that employees shouldn't be subject to workplace harassment and should be targets of protection. CEO said, yes. Aren't artists in the same category? This is a trap. He knows that the artists are not in the same category as employees under the law. And so he's trying to trap the CEO. And the CEO said, I understand that there are discussions underway in the National Assembly to include artists in the employee category, but legally artists aren't included in the employee category.
Yep.
This is the part that was manipulated by the bunnies. They took it out, the soundbite out of context, and then said that, oh, the CEO doesn't consider artists as human. But really it means like legally, I understand that because of you, lawmakers have not protected artists yet, so they're not given the employee protections. Now, this is where she showed and flexed her skill. She said, however, whether they're employees or not, in our company, according to like our family
everyone
rules,
is treated
the rules
equally
in this house is that no matter whether you're an employee or an artist, we have a code of conduct, we have guidelines, and we have regular trainings, and we have a lot of efforts made to institutionalize this as part of our culture to have good workplace relations. Uncle said, Adore can be seen as a subsidiary of Hybe. Yes.
Who cares?
Uncle says, Adore employees can also be seen as Hybe employees. The CEO senses the trap yet again, said legally the employees are members of separate corporations.
Yep.
But yes, they belong to the Hybe label.
Corporation. Yeah.
Uncle lost
The
that
Hybe
point.
label.
Uncle's on a rant now. Said, is this shareholder dispute affecting the atmosphere in the company? CEO, whether this is real or
Maybe.
strategic, the pause. It deflates the other side. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
She said, I asked the assembly to respect the separate ongoing legal cases that are going on in court. We have to be careful with what we say. And the uncle says, well, we think now they're going to give MBA advice to Hybe. So we think there needs to be efforts made in this particular situation of the shareholder conflicts trickling down to the conflicts among the entities and Hybe.
Okay, but they literally just want to tear Hybe apart and put out the Minhijin versus Hybe stuff in a hearing that is not involved in this. Like, this is about Hanni being allegedly bullied in her workplace, and the current CEO of Adore is in a little trap. And she is maneuvering really, really nice. Like, as I said in the other video, she came prepared. She has the knowledge, she has the vocabulary, she has the language, the professionalism, she understands her own language. So yeah, and it's not a coincidence that she is a CEO, she is in a leading position, because cases like this can show to the public that why certain leaders in their places right now.
No, it's not a shareholder dispute thing going on. It's just a bully situation going on. He went on, when asked about your efforts to prevent bullying, you only gave a very general and vague answer. But now he goes into the very specific plan that she outlined. He said, you said there was a reporting center, and then what happens when a case gets reported. But that's a program that was probably set up because of the current problem.
She's a new CEO.
Type of bullying questioning that puts words and policies, that's painting their own version of reality that does not exist and trying to get it onto the assembly record is egregious. I think the equivalent of this would basically be like a truck driver driving drunk. They should be taken off the road. Then he said, I think you need to make efforts to create an atmosphere that protects the artists. And her face card gave Chewy Cookie that just turned crunchy. And he said, have you ever made the effort? So the CEO's responses, as you can tell, has been very careful and very guarded. To the untrained eye, it could look like guilt or she's weak or she's accepting, but really what she's doing is the long-term strategy. The politicians need the fast, aggressive sound bites, and they would appreciate a flippant response because that would make themselves look better. Whereas sometimes I think like, wow, the CEO was being a little bit too contrite but she is doing the long-term strategy. Like she's coming off of like a whole, decades long career in just sitting in meeting rooms and, needing to see these people day in and day out. So she's more of a person that was trying to calm them down. I understand your worries. There are deep concerns. She wanted to talk more, got cut off by the uncle. And he did it in a way, again, where it was more of like a man shutting up a woman that he didn't want to hear speak because she wasn't giving in and giving him the affirmation that he wanted. And he says, well, if this ignore gate is true, the manager can also be a victim because in this fight with the shareholders, they would be taking sides to save their own butts. They could be caught up in the middle of a fight. Hanni and the other artists and our trainees. You should see the face card on the CEO. She's like, the heck? What? Why are you saying our trainees as if like you've been meeting with meeting up with my trainees.
Yeah.
It's sort of like looking at a guy and be like,
Oh,
you've been seeing my daughter? He's like, they need to be protected. Can't you do that? And then she responded,
oh.
yes, I will take your accounts into consideration and work on them diligently. She understands that the show today is about the uncles. So she's not going to give them more spotlight by being an active scene partner. She's letting them dig their own graves. And I thought that was a very shady thing to say, like,
Yeah.
our
What?
trainees. And he continued on. He said, Honey, I thank you so much for coming out today. Your bravery will help all the artists in your companies, not just the juniors, but our juniors. Again, this our thing. Now, Korean people in general might think like, okay, that's a little bit odd, but they would wholeheartedly just accept the gaslighting response if he was ever even called out on it, where he's saying like, oh, I kind of consider them like out, like in a
Why?
very
Who are you?
loving kind of protecting tone, as if they were my children. But it
Yeah,
just
protective, creepy
anybody who
uncle.
really
Yeah.
knows what's going on with the cookie song knows that this is a
Yeah.
very highly suspect box of cookies. So now we have
Yeah,
the
it
uncle with the
is.
laptop. He said like, oh, Bang Shi-hyuk is not here. This is not the time to be frolicking in America. He's the culprit.
Why are we talking about Bang Shi-hyuk in a bullying situation in a door? Like, come on, a little bit, just a little professionalism. It should be somewhere in the air in that room. Like, honestly, it's so mind bugging that they still hook on this situation that has nothing to do with this case. Like, what?
Behind this latest social unrest. Another way that Korean people try to attack, especially in the National Assembly level, where it somewhat has like this legal grip, is like if you do something that really causes widespread social unrest, the government can take action against you. And so he's trying to link it to that, saying like, oh, we've heard how Hanni says that they feel ostracized and were told to be ignored. It's shocking that this would come from a major entertainment company betraying the public like this. All of this seems like a cheap soap opera. Okay, this coming from the National Assembly.
Really, you heard that? You heard the last, I don't know how many hours was this hearing. You sat there and you heard it. I mean, that's the bare minimum. Like, it's so frustrating. Like, why? And they are these creepy bunny uncles. Is they are acting as this footage is not going to spread around the globe right now. Like, this is 2024, and they're not going to have a reputation overseas. Like, they if they just living their lives in their bubble in South Korea, and but that's the case in South Korea as well. The younger generation is not going to live this like this. They are going to say that the whole National Assembly needs a reboot as the whole country. That's what the other thing I say all of these videos. Like, South Korea is lost the moral consciousness as a country, and they need a whole rebirth as of right now, like ASAP. They cannot wait. Like, this has to be changed.
That on a regular basis gives us soap operas complete with sledgehammers and crowbars and physical fights and blocking of hallways so that nobody can go past laws that should be illegal. And they're going and commenting about how this looks like a bad soap opera with them looking like the fools. And he says, oh, you still the chief of HR at Hybe? CEO says yes. So, as the top HR person at Hybe, you're saying that since the two labels are separate, there was no reply. Does this make sense? She said mediation efforts are underway. There are internal issues, conflicting accounts. And then before she was able to go on about like how, these accounts are conflicting, that kind of cast down on Hanni. Uncle interrupted. And he did it in a way where the subtext was like, you rambling women don't want to hear you because you won't agree with me. So then he said, you talked about the code of respect earlier. Does it apply to the employees? Aren't artists also employees? Again, miscalculated trap. She's not that dumb. You can't throw anything over this CEO.
You're not talking
she said that this code of conduct applies to everybody. And the reason why the uncle messed up is that he was thinking from the law's perspective, the law doesn't cover everybody. He wanted her to say it doesn't cover them because it's not covered by the law. But remember, this is more of a gentleman's agreement. This code of conduct is not tied to the law. It's more of like, if you want to work in this building at Hybe, you're going to have to abide by this code of conduct. And so that can apply to everybody, including the artists who are not legally protected, but they are protected by Hybe doing a solid for everybody to protect them under a code of conduct. And so that just destroyed Uncle's arguments and plan. And he was shucking and jiving, struggling, because she just shot down his whole performance. Because he said, I have the code of conduct here. And you could totally tell he was about to go on this like Bible thumping type of rant, being like, shouldn't this code of conduct also be applied to the employees as well as the artists?
And she said everyone.
She's basically preempted that whole thing by saying our code of conduct applies to everybody. Now he's just trying to make up for lost time and say like, well, if this were true, what happened to Hanni, that would be a code of conduct violation, right? And she said, yes, if it were true. Well, that just opens up the door now for we know that there are many true code of conduct violations that Mini Jin has done. And we have the evidence for. So where is Mini Jin at this National Assembly hearing? Where's the code of conduct for the National Assembly? Does it have clauses for sledgehammers and crowbars and fist fights? Where is the code of conduct that we can refer to for the National Assembly? All right, Auntie tries to flex. But she fails miserably. She tries to lob this accusation that Hybe was responsible for the death of a worker. That's what she's trying to equate, because all the other CEOs showing up were responsible for deaths of workers. And so she's saying like, well, there was this incident in February 2022, an employee at Hybe collapsed from work and then died at the hospital. We received a tip-off of this because there's a lot of long working hours, including nighttime shifts at entertainment companies. Imagine how many people at the National Assembly are burning the midnight oil. But anyway, then the CEO, she was trying to correct the assemblywoman in a very demure way. She's like, well, as far as I know, and then she brings out the receipts. As far as I know, happened September 2022, not February. So already Auntie is sweating because she can't even get her facts right. Then she said this person went into the nap room at 5 p.m. More receipts. Unfortunately, he was found collapsed and then transferred to the hospital. And then a few days later, he died. This was very sad. CEO was trying to express remorse, interrupted by Auntie, who doesn't want to share the spotlight with CEO K. Auntie said, you said it was a personal illness, but to us on the committee, it's a workplace illness. Like, they have a serious problem with if I say so mouth. And there's no evidence of this. And the auntie said like, well, you're taking care of multiple idol groups at the same time. There were many instances of this person working day and night. We checked. There was no industrial accident claim. So she even said it herself, the evidence showed there's no industrial accident. This was not an industrial accident. But then she said, well, since there's no evidence of an industrial accident claim, we think it was a cover-up, and there should have been an industrial accident claim. The CEO did another cookie slap and said, "Ooh, respectful,
Ooh.
honorable assemblywoman, there absolutely was no cover up."
Mm-hmm.
Assemblywoman Auntie said, "There's no autopsy, right?" CEO says, "Yes, that was a decision made by the parents."
Family,
The
yeah.
auntie said, "Oh, yeah, well, usually cover ups work that way. Agreements with the family to."
The assemblywoman is know it too well. Like she is speaking with experience from experience. Like this sounds like a reality show, not a serious court hearing. Like as if we see and we hearing reality show stars. Like these are the brain of the country, the brain of South Korea. I don't think so. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like that. Like if this is the case over there, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's not this bad, like that, like there, here in Hungary. Like it's bad. It's bad everywhere in terms of political issues and communication and how they handling these cases in a smaller level and even in a uh, higher profile cases. Like if this is that South Korea can offer in terms of legal brains and stuff like that and lawmakers, then I'm sorry, but South Korea does not need a rebirth, as I've said. It's need a, I don't even know what is more um, like a Lazarus rising, like something out of the blue, like a I am not going to say what I wanted to say, but because that would probably bring this video down in my channel, but this is really well, okay.
Cover it up. Now, that is true. However, what evidence does she have that it was true in this situation? She is literally just going hog wild with all these accusations against Hybe. Then she didn't even try the passion play thing because she knew that she was outgunned, outmatched. So that's the thing. With this CEO, when you just kind of look at her from a very Western perspective and then also just at a glance, even in Korea, it looks like what does she do? Like, does she know what she's doing? Oh, she knew exactly what she was doing, and
Yes,
she shut down even these National Assembly bullies.
and it looks like
Let's be
it
clear, this was
was
a
not that difficult.
bully setup of humiliation that they were trying to play on the CEO and Hybe. And it didn't work. Even Hanni's ending performance with her fake tears. You can tell the young guys in the background, they were not buying it. And of course, there were manner eyes of not trying to stare at her, but also the vibe that I got was that, and I've seen this a lot, I want to bring this up, is that these younger guys were kind of feeling like, okay,
They are over this.
this cookie is not for us because she's been
Yeah.
already claimed by all the older uncles in this room. And I found that this dynamic was very disgusting. Not that they have claims over Hanni either, but just in general, there should be a dynamic because you could see this in society that young men should be flirting with the young women, if they go that way. And that's the crew, that's the community or pool that seems age appropriate to me.
Yeah.
However, I think part of the big frustration with a lot of these younger guys is that they are seeing the dating pool of women that's supposed to be their age being like snapped up or adulterated by men of their father's generation. And it's just a very odd feeling that there's nothing that they can do if like their dad's friends or their, people of their dad's and dad's friends age are essentially banging their girlfriends, or the women who should be in their pool of trying to be their girlfriends. It's kind of gross. And I think that
It is.
creates a lot of resentment in the younger men's group. And instead of targeting their older generation of men as being the source of the problem, in some weird, twisted way, a lot of these men will then blame the women. And so that's why I bring it up, because, like, I think that there is a culprit here who is hiding behind the sofa cushions at the room salon that needs to be brought out. And that effect and that dynamic leading to contributing to some of the misogyny again against women. The CEO's closing remarks is more like a politician. Oh, she was politicianing better than the people who failed at questioning her. And she said, "We will take your opinions into account, work diligently at them. We will listen to Hanni and elevate the voices of our artists to carefully protect human rights so that they can fulfill their hopes and dreams." She said again, "I've only been CEO for a month and a half, but if you give me the
That's the
chance and
other
trust me, I
case,
will make a
yeah.
better company, pay back society, and give back to the."
They treat her as if she was a CEO of a 10-year-old company, and she was like the CEO from the start. And I thought she was in the CEO position for a little bit longer time, but a month and a half. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, they accusing her with issues that rooted in the mistakes and misguidance of under a other CEO who is eventually promised these creepy uncles a lot of cookies that we know, but
those who love K-pop and have a much better company, and do it with responsibility, sense of care to make things better. So she outplayed them all. She really outplayed them all without looking like she was playing. That is the master chess player in this situation in Korea, where you have to look like truly you didn't force anything upon anybody else, but you were able to slide the bullets out of the chamber of anybody holding a weapon at
yeah,
you, and then stand your ground, not overreact, and then know that you already came prepared with all the lines drawn in the sand, and you're not going to fall into any of the traps laid out for you. So she did an excellent job, definitely. I don't know if I would want to have coffee and, crumpets with her, because she kind of scares me. But I think that's a good thing, because I think Chairman
this
Peng
situation, hi, yeah,
did a very good thing where he put the right
yes,
person in the role,
absolutely,
absolute right person
yeah.
in the role to go head to head with Minnie Jin. So Minnie Jin better can be counting her cookies. We have an update that Minnie Jin was renewed for 3 more years to be an inside director.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I was interested because, yeah, yesterday, for me, it was yesterday, the day when the board meeting was in in Hive, the active board meeting, which was about whether if they gonna keep Min Hee-jin in the board of directors, and apparently she sucked. because she's staying under the terms of the other board of directors, which means she is stuck there for at least another 3 years.
And she did come crawling back to accept the creative director or
Of course she did.
producer job of New Jeans that she had rejected before all this mess. So it only goes to show that her play with the press conference that the New Jeans girls did live on YouTube, and then her Hyundai card thing, and that Hanni's testimony thing, all of these recent histrionics did not work. And she had to crawl back to get what she could
That we already
until,
know.
she could probably launch her next attack. All right, guys, what do you think of Hanni's hearing with her bunny uncles at the National Assembly?
I mean, what could you say, honestly? Like, um, according to his comment on Min Hee-jin is launching her next attack against Hybe. It's going to be way more difficult than it was before Jin and J-Hope came back, in my opinion, because they gonna look out. They going to keep their eyes open in around Hybe, because as we know, they are shareholders as well. So, and in my opinion, they are taking this situation seriously, and I think because Bora City made a video about the BTS contracts, the renewal of their contracts as of 2025, and the contract is going to be in motion from 2025 for another 7 years, if I'm correct with the numbers, but I am always in trouble with numbers. So and essentially these new contracts are providing more inside power for the BTS members in terms of making decisions with the higher ups, like the board of directors. And if I remember correctly, Bora City even made a comment about it, like this new contract is this was needed to be okayed by the board of directors, which means there is a whole another level types of contract than the other artists have at Hybe. So anywhere else as well, because you rarely hear that a artist from a company is also a shareholder in their company as well, and they are making decisions with the higher ups. So, and they have voice and they have power in their area. So I would definitely agree with the sentiment that she's going to try. She's going to try so hard, because the next 3 years is going to be hell for her. And no one is gonna be that brave that they would lend a hand to her after this situation. And this is not even over. This is just confirmation that Hype has the upper hand right now. They allowed her to stay there in their inner circle for the next 3 years. Like, they probably know already her secrets and connections with other mainstream media outlets. for example, Kakao Talk and stuff like that. Because, I mean, even if we as a general public not know about it, they know it. And they don't have to share it. We see the results and the decisions that they are making, like allowing her to stay with them for the next 3 years. So, yeah. What do you think? Tell me in the comments, because at this point, I don't think Min Hee-jin can come back from this.